It was the kind of thing you don't unhear. I didn't go looking for it, wasn't suspicious, wasn't digging through her things, wasn't being that paranoid husband who checks his wife's emails when she's in the shower. No. I was in the garage trying to find that damn old blender she swore we donated last summer, because apparently Maya wanted smoothies for breakfast, and I was the only one with time to find it. There's a storage closet in the back, behind the tool shelves, where we keep all the junk that piles up over the years, old Halloween costumes, Christmas lights with half the bulbs busted, baby clothes and boxes we kept for no reason. That's where I heard it. Our bedroom is right above that closet, and the floor vent in the ceiling must carry sound, because as I moved boxes around, swearing under my breath about why the hell we still had a broken vacuum from 2014, I froze. I didn't even know what stopped me at first. I thought maybe I heard the kids, but they were at her mom's house for the weekend. It was just us. Or at least I thought it was. I turned my head toward the ceiling, confused, still as a statue. Then I heard it again, soft at first, then louder. A moan. Her moan. I know that sound. I know the way her voice catches when she's about to climax. I know that shaky, gasping tone she gets when she's close. But what made the blood drain from my face was the name that followed. She said it. Whispered it like a prayer. It wasn't mine. It wasn't even close to mine. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, staring up at the vent like it had just spoken directly to me. And then I heard it again, clearer this time, louder. She called out, "Yes, Ethan." God, yes, Ethan. And no, it wasn't our son's name. Thank God. That would have been another kind of horror. No, this Ethan was someone else entirely. I backed away from the closet slowly, careful not to make a sound, like I was sneaking away from a crime scene. Or maybe from a wild animal that hadn't noticed me yet. My legs were numb as I walked back into the kitchen. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see her flushed face, that fake smile she always gives me when she's hiding something, the sheets twisted around her thighs while she pretends she's been taking a nap. I didn't want to look into those eyes and know that behind them she was picturing someone else. So I waited. I sat on the edge of the couch in the living room and stared at the muted TV screen. And I waited until I heard the toilet flush, the sound of the faucet running, the shuffle of her feet down the stairs. She came down in leggings and one of my old t-shirts, her hair tied up in a messy bun like she'd just finished doing laundry or watching a show in bed, and she smiled at me. "Find the blender?" she asked, wiping her hands on the hem of her shirt. I looked up at her, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I wanted to ask, wanted to scream, wanted to punch something, but instead I just nodded. "Yeah, I'll wash it." She sat across from me with her phone in hand, scrolling through some app like it was any other day. No guilt on her face. No tension. I studied her, tried to find some clue, something in her posture or her expression that would give her away. But she looked exactly the same. That pissed me off more than anything. "You sleep okay?" I asked, testing the waters. "Yeah," she said with a shrug. "Had a weird dream, though." "Oh yeah," I said, keeping my voice even. "What about?" She paused for a moment like she was trying to remember. "I dunno. I think we were on a boat or something. Can't really remember the details." Then she laughed lightly. "You know how dreams are." I nodded again and looked away, biting down on my tongue until I tasted blood. I could still hear it, her voice, saying his name, asking him not to stop. My wife, in our bed, while I was downstairs looking for a goddamn blender. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't the first time. You don't get that comfortable, that relaxed, that bold unless you've done it before and gotten away with it. This wasn't a mistake. It was a routine. I didn't say a word for the rest of the day. I couldn't. My head was a war zone. I kept imagining things, her with him, laughing, touching, all those little private things she used to do with me, now handed over to someone else. I was drowning in it, and she sat there on the couch like we were still the same. That night, I lay in bed beside her, pretending to sleep while she scrolled through her phone in the dark, and I knew I had to find out who Ethan was. The next morning, I got up before her. I usually do anyway, especially on weekends. She likes to sleep in, says it's the only time she gets to truly rest. I stood in the kitchen making coffee with my eyes fixed on nothing, barely feeling the mug in my hand. I didn't sleep. I laid there the whole night with my back to her, hearing every shift in the sheets, every swipe of her finger on her phone screen, every breath she took. My mind wasn't racing. It wasn't moving at all. It was stuck on one loop, one name, one voice, hers, echoing from the ceiling of that storage closet, dragging me into a version of my life I didn't recognize. I wasn't going to ask her. Not yet. She would deny it, spin something stupid, act confused or offended. She would play the game like she always does when something doesn't go her way, smiling just enough to seem calm, twisting the truth just enough to pass it off as harmless. No, I needed more than what I heard. I needed something real, something she couldn't twist. I wasn't going to play dumb and wait for her to come clean. That wasn't going to happen. Women like Laura don't come clean. They just adjust their stories to the situation. Around 10, she finally wandered into the kitchen wearing the same shirt she'd had on the night before. She didn't even bother changing. Her hair was still messy, no makeup, but she still looked good. That was the part that made me sick. She looked good, and she knew it. She walked around me to grab a cup without a word, poured some coffee, and leaned against the counter like we hadn't been sleeping in separate worlds. "What's the plan today?" she asked casually, staring at her phone. "I might clean out the garage," I replied, keeping my tone level. "There's a lot of old stuff in there." "Didn't you just do that a couple weeks ago?" she said, glancing up with a smirk. "Didn't finish," I answered, not looking at her. "Thought I had, but turns out there's more buried back there." She nodded, not really listening, already scrolling through whatever feed she lived on now. Probably his messages. Maybe even pictures. Maybe they laughed about me, about how clueless I was, about how easy it was to keep things hidden in plain sight. I went back out to the garage that afternoon, same spot as yesterday, under the bedroom, in that cramped little closet with the floor vent. This time, I didn't make any noise. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there and listened. But the room above was silent. Dead quiet. No voices, no creaking bed, no moans. Just silence. And I stood there for maybe 30 minutes, trying to piece together what I was really doing. Was I hoping to catch her again? Was I hoping to be wrong? After dinner, I waited until she went upstairs to shower and unwind. That was usually her alone time, but I didn't believe in that phrase anymore. Nothing about her was just hers anymore. I crept upstairs 20 minutes later, careful not to step on the spots that creaked. The door to the bedroom was half closed. I could hear the blow dryer going. I peeked in and saw her in front of the mirror, brushing her hair, phone in hand. She was smiling. I couldn't see what was on the screen from the hallway, but I didn't need to. That smile was new. That wasn't the smile I got anymore. Later that night, when she was asleep, I took the chance I'd been thinking about all day. Her laptop was on the nightstand, closed but not shut down. I didn't go for her phone, she'd know. But the laptop, she barely used it, and when she did, she never logged out. I opened it slowly, muted the volume, and waited for the screen to light up. It did. No password prompt. Idiot. Just a browser open to some Pinterest board about bathroom tiles. I wasn't interested in her decor plans. I checked the tabs, the history. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed the folder on the desktop named Campaign. She worked in marketing. Campaigns were part of the job. I clicked it anyway. Inside were files with bland names, proposal_Q2, strategy outline, notes. But one stood out. Just named Ethan. No last name. No client title. Just Ethan. I opened it, expecting a document. It wasn't. It was a video. I paused for a second. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, unsure. Then I clicked. The screen lit up with her face. It was recorded on her phone. The angle was slightly tilted, like she'd propped it on a table or against a pillow. She was sitting on a bed, not our bed, and smiling into the camera. She wasn't talking, just looking. Then a man appeared behind her, shirtless, lean, with dark curly hair and arms covered in tattoos. Ethan. He kissed her neck, and she laughed. I slammed the laptop shut so fast I almost cracked the screen. Back in the kitchen, I stood against the counter in the dark, trying to process what I'd seen. That was it. That was my proof. That was my wife, with another man, recording it like it was a souvenir. It wasn't even hidden. It was sitting right there on her laptop like a saved file from a work trip. She hadn't just cheated. She'd documented it. I wasn't just betrayed. I was archived. I stayed there for over an hour, in the dark, unmoving, thinking about what to do next. She had no idea that the game was over. Not yet. But soon. Very soon. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I felt was pressure in my chest, like my own ribs were trying to crush me. I didn't sleep well. I kept seeing her face in that video, her expression, the way she looked at him, not like someone who made a mistake, not like someone caught up in something temporary, but like someone completely comfortable, someone fully present in that moment with him. With Ethan. I couldn't get over the calmness of her smile. It didn't look rushed or secretive. It looked rehearsed. That thought bothered me more than anything else. This wasn't something she regretted. This was something she preserved. That file didn't just appear there by accident. I didn't go to the kitchen. I didn't pour coffee or pretend it was a normal morning. Instead, I stayed in bed until I heard her head out to the gym. That was her Sunday routine. She'd come back sweaty, smiling, full of fake energy, acting like everything was fine. I waited until I heard the garage door close. Then I got up and went in her closet. I wasn't looking for clothes. I was looking for something, anything, that would explain how deep this went. I checked drawers, bags, boxes, old purses. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for until I found it. Stuffed in the back corner behind an old laptop bag was a second phone. I picked it up, pressed the side button. It powered on immediately. No fingerprint lock, no Face ID, no passcode. Again, stupid. Or maybe she thought I'd never find it. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the photos first. There were dozens, maybe hundreds, of images and clips. Her in a car, her in a hotel room, her in a mirror in her underwear, most of them alone, but a few with him. Ethan, always shirtless, always smiling. She was smiling too. In one, they were at some kind of beach rental. Another showed her sitting on his lap in a car, laughing with her hand on his face. The timestamp was from 4 weeks ago. That weekend, she said she went to her sister's house for a girls' retreat. She even brought back a tote bag with the spa logo on it. I remembered because she said the massage was the best she ever had. I scrolled through her messages next. There were long threads with Ethan. They texted every day like teenagers. Memes, inside jokes, screenshots of conversations. They were mocking, some of them mine. She had taken a picture of the grocery list I left on the fridge and sent it to him with a caption, "My husband, the domestic goddess." He replied with LMAO, he probably folds the laundry too. She responded with a photo of me actually folding laundry. I remember that day. She said she took it because she thought it was cute. I put the phone down for a moment and stared out the window. The backyard looked exactly the same. The world didn't know what I had just seen. Birds were out, cars were passing, and everything else just moved on. But I couldn't. I picked the phone back up and recorded myself reading a few of the texts out loud into my own phone. I didn't know why. Maybe because I didn't trust myself to remember it all clearly later. Maybe because part of me needed to hear it in my own voice to make it real. When she got home, she acted like everything was fine. I heard the garage, the door opening, her keys on the counter. Then her voice called out casually, "Hey, babe? You want anything from that breakfast spot? I'm thinking of picking up something small." I walked into the kitchen slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "No thanks," I said. "I already ate." She opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water, wiping her face with a towel draped over her shoulder. "You sleep okay?" she asked, not looking at me. "I had a weird dream," I said. She laughed a little. "Yeah? What about?" "You and Ethan," I said flatly. Her body froze for just a second, just one, and then she turned her head slowly toward me, blinking. "What?" I said. "I had a dream," I repeated, staring right at her, "where you and Ethan were in a hotel room. You looked really happy, comfortable, even." There was silence. She tried to say something, but nothing came out. "Who the hell is Ethan?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She stared at me like she didn't understand English, then finally said, "You're scaring me." "No," I said. "You're just scared," I found out. She looked around the kitchen like the answer was hiding in the cabinets, then set her water down and walked out of the room without saying a word. I followed her. "Don't walk away. Not this time. You're going to talk." "I don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, her voice rising, but her eyes were already darting, calculating. "What is this? Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm informing." She crossed her arms, defensive, shifting from fear to anger like a switch flipped. "You're being insane. You always get like this when you feel insecure. You imagine things, you make up scenarios." I watched the video, Laura. Her face dropped. All the color drained out of it. And for the first time, she said nothing. "You recorded it. You saved it. You kept it. I heard you moan his name. Then I found the second phone. You didn't even bother locking it." Silence. "Say something." She sat down on the edge of the couch and put her head in her hands. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," she whispered. "So you meant for me to find out some other way?" She looked up at me, eyes red, mouth trembling. "I just wanted to feel like myself again." "What the hell does that mean?" She couldn't answer that. Or maybe she didn't want to. I turned and walked out of the room. That conversation wasn't over. But it was the beginning. I didn't say a single word to her for the rest of that day. Not when she tried to hover around the kitchen pretending to do dishes she never usually touched, not when she asked if I wanted to talk. And not when she came upstairs later that night and stood in the doorway of our bedroom looking like she expected me to invite her in. I ignored her completely. She ended up sleeping on the couch. I heard the springs creak around 1 in the morning. I was wide awake anyway. I'd spent the last few hours printing every single message, every photo, every video, every call log from that second phone. I backed up everything to a flash drive. I wasn't going to rely on digital copies that could disappear with one deleted folder. I needed hard copies. I needed the truth in a form no one could erase. The next morning, I called into work and told them I'd be offline for the day. I didn't explain why, and they didn't ask. Laura was already gone by then, probably trying to act normal, go to her office and sit at her desk like she wasn't currently in the middle of watching her entire marriage collapse in slow motion. That's the thing that really got to me, how easily she switched between roles. One night she's filming herself on another man's lap, and the next day she's back to pouring cereal for the kids or managing a campaign budget. There wasn't even a pause. That level of compartmentalizing was disturbing. Around noon, I picked up the flash drive, drove to a copy shop a few towns over, and asked them to print everything, double-sided, no formatting changes, all as is. The woman at the counter didn't flinch when she saw what was on the preview screen. Maybe she'd seen worse. I didn't care either way. She handed me a box an hour later, and I brought it home like I was carrying my own autopsy report. When Laura got back home, I was sitting at the dining table with the box of evidence sitting right in front of me. I didn't hide it. I wanted her to see it. She dropped her bag on the floor and stood there, eyeing the box like it might explode. "What's that?" she asked quietly. "Everything," I said. "Everything you thought I wouldn't find. Every conversation, every picture, every plan you made with him." She didn't move. "You want to read it together?" I asked. "You want to sit down and go over the highlights?" She shook her head. "No. No." I repeated. "That's surprising. You seemed so proud of it in the videos. Smiling for the camera like you were filming a vacation." She walked past me toward the living room, like she couldn't stand to be near the box. "Why did you keep it?" I called out. "Why save it?" She stopped mid-step and turned around slowly. "I don't know. That's not good enough." "I really don't," she said. "I didn't think I'd get caught. I didn't think you'd ever go looking. So it's my fault?" "I didn't say that. But you thought it." "No," she said firmly. "But I did think we were falling apart. I thought you were already gone emotionally. You thought I was gone. So you brought someone else into our bed?" "Not into our bed." She shot back immediately, like that made a difference. I stood up and grabbed the flash drive. "Take this," I said. "Keep it. Watch it whenever you feel lonely again. It'll remind you of everything you threw away." She didn't reach for it. "I don't want it. I don't care." I tossed it on the coffee table in front of her. Then I walked upstairs. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I didn't wait for some deep conversation or final argument. I was done. I told him I wanted to file as soon as possible, no delays. I wasn't looking for a drawn-out court battle. I just wanted her gone. We didn't have a prenup, but the evidence would help. He said he'd get started right away. I gave him everything, copies of the photos, screenshots, the drive. He didn't flinch either. Said it was more common than most people think. That night, I handed Laura the first envelope. "What's this?" she asked, barely making eye contact. "Divorce papers," I said. "You'll see I'm not asking for much. I just want peace. I want my life back." She stared at the envelope in her hands, then finally looked up at me. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." "No discussion?" "I've had enough of your voice to last a lifetime." She didn't argue. Maybe she expected it. Maybe she'd been waiting for it. "You can stay with your sister," I said. "You have until Sunday. After that, I want the house to myself." She didn't reply. She packed a bag later that night. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. On Sunday morning, she left like I asked. No hugs, no long goodbye, no tears. She came downstairs with her suitcase, gave me one last glance from the doorway, and walked out without saying anything. That was the most honest thing she had done in weeks. I didn't watch her drive away. I just stood in the kitchen and listened to the silence that followed. And for the first time in a long time, it felt right. Not good, not relieving, just right. Like the sound matched what my life had become. I waited an hour before walking upstairs to check if she really took everything. The closet was half empty. Her jewelry was gone, along with the framed pictures from her side of the dresser. She didn't leave a note. She didn't text later to ask if I was okay. She disappeared exactly how someone does when they know they've already said enough. I spent the next few days cleaning. Not because I needed to, but because I didn't know what else to do. I scrubbed the kitchen floor 3 times in one day. I rearranged the living room furniture, moved the couch to the other wall, threw out the pillows she picked, even got rid of the rug that she claimed tied the whole room together. Everything she touched, I wanted gone. I deleted her shows from the streaming profiles, her playlist from the Bluetooth speakers, even changed the Wi-Fi password because I remembered she still had a few devices connected. I wiped her name out of every part of the house like I was trying to remove a bad smell. But that never really works. You can clean everything and still find something weeks later that reminds you she used to sit in that chair or laugh in that hallway or cry in that kitchen. I wasn't trying to forget. I just didn't want to be reminded every 5 minutes. She didn't message until the following Friday. It was short. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. About what? She took her time responding. I imagined her sitting at her sister's kitchen table, thumbs hovering over the screen, wondering if she should send the next line. I don't want it to end like this. I replied immediately. It already has. She didn't answer after that. A few days later, her sister called. I didn't recognize the number until I heard the voice. Hi, it's Dana. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. You're right, I said. I just wanted to ask if you're okay. I mean, everything happened so fast. Dana, I'm not going to talk about this with you. I get it, she said. But Laura's not doing well. She's not eating. She barely talks. She's crying all the time. She should have thought about that before screwing another guy and recording it. I'm not defending her, Dana said quickly. I just think maybe you both need closure. I didn't say anything. I could hear her breathing on the other end, waiting for a response that wasn't coming. She said she wants to apologize. In person. She can mail it, I said. Apologies don't mean anything when they're only said after getting caught. I understand, Dana said. But she said she's sorry for real. That she ruined everything. She did, I said. She ruined everything. And now she's trying to control how the story ends. Tell her I'm not interested. I hung up. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room felt bigger now. Colder. But that was fine. I didn't want warmth from someone who'd already shared it with someone else. I saw her again 10 days later. Not because I wanted to. She showed up. I heard the knock around 8 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, I didn't move. She looked thinner. Her face was tired. She held something in her hand. Can I come in? She asked. No. I just want to say something. One thing. You already said enough, I replied. She held out a manila envelope. I wrote it down. Everything. I didn't want to just say it. I know I'd mess it up if I tried. I took the envelope but didn't open it. She looked at me for a moment, like she was waiting for me to ask her something, give her a chance, give her a smile, anything. I didn't. I know I don't deserve to be forgiven, she said quietly. But I wanted you to hear it anyway, whether you read it or not. I nodded once. Goodbye, Laura. She hesitated like she didn't want to move, but then she turned and walked back to her car. I shut the door. I didn't read the letter that night. I didn't even think about it. I left it on the coffee table and went to bed. I'd already made up my mind. Whatever she had to say wouldn't change anything. The damage wasn't just the cheating. It was the effort she put into hiding it, the laughing behind my back, the smiling in his arms, the way she kept the memories of it like souvenirs. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision she made every day for weeks, maybe months. She gambled with everything we built and lost. That letter wasn't going to rebuild anything. Not now. Not ever. And I was finally okay with that. The envelope stayed on my coffee table for 6 more days. I didn't touch it. I'd pass by it in the morning on my way to make coffee, see it sitting there like a leftover reminder of a conversation I never agreed to have, and walk right by. It never moved. She didn't follow up, didn't call again, didn't ask if I had read it. I think she knew better by then. People always try to control the way things end because they're scared of being judged only by the worst thing they've done. I wasn't interested in helping her rewrite what happened. I lived it. I didn't need her version on paper. What surprised me was how quiet everything felt after it was all over. I expected to be angrier. I thought there'd be more yelling, more drama, some ugly final scene with tears and slammed doors and accusations thrown like weapons. But it never came. After she walked out with that suitcase, she was just gone, and the only sound left was my own thoughts trying to make sense of a marriage that collapsed faster than I ever imagined. People say you always see the signs in hindsight. That's not true. Sometimes you don't see anything at all. You trust, you go through the routines, you assume the person next to you is still on the same page, and one day you find out they were in a completely different story. I finally opened the envelope on a Thursday night. Not because I was curious, but because I wanted to be done with it. If there was going to be a final word, I didn't want it floating around unread. Inside was a 5-page letter, handwritten. Her handwriting hadn't changed. Still neat, still precise, like everything she did. I read every line slowly, expecting the usual apologies, guilt, some attempt to explain the unexplainable, but what I found was something else. She admitted everything. Not just Ethan, but another guy before him. Said it happened once, 2 years ago, during a conference out of town. She claimed she didn't plan it, that it just happened, but she never told me because she was afraid I'd leave. After that, she promised herself it would never happen again. Then she met Ethan at the gym. Said he reminded her of who she used to be, made her feel wanted, seen, alive, all the usual things people say when they want to excuse their decisions. She didn't blame me. She said I was always steady, always kind, always loyal. That was the part that made my stomach turn. If you know someone is loyal, and you betray them anyway, what does that say about you? She didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't ask for another chance. She ended the letter with, "I know you probably hate me now, and I can't blame you. But I hope one day, when enough time has passed, you'll remember something good about what we had. Because we did have something good. Until I destroyed it." I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in a drawer in the office upstairs. Not to keep it forever. Just to get it out of sight. That chapter was closed, but I wasn't ready to throw it in the trash just yet. Maybe later. Maybe when I felt like it wasn't still smoldering in my chest. 3 weeks after she left, the divorce was finalized. She didn't contest anything. My lawyer said it was one of the cleanest cases he'd handled in years. No fighting, no delays, no property battles. We each took what we brought in, split the savings, and that was it. I kept the house. She moved in with her sister. That was the last I saw her in person. Just two people who once shared a life, now reduced to signatures on a few pieces of paper and the cold click of a courthouse stamp. I didn't cry. Not once. I waited for it, thought it would come at some point. Some breakdown in the middle of the night or a wave of regret that would hit me during a song or while looking at an old photo. But it didn't. What came instead was a kind of calm I didn't expect. I wasn't glad she was gone. I wasn't happy about what happened. But I was finally breathing again. I wasn't holding my breath every time she picked up her phone or walked out the door. I wasn't wondering what was real and what wasn't. I was just living, one day at a time, on my own terms. I got a new couch, a new rug. I moved the bed to the other side of the room. I changed the locks. I donated every piece of clothing she left behind. Not because I wanted to erase her. I just didn't want to feel like she might still come back. That door wasn't cracked open anymore. It was shut, sealed, and locked. A few weeks later, a friend asked if I'd ever date again. I told him I wasn't even thinking about it. Right now, I was just trying to remember who I was before her. It had been so long, I wasn't sure I knew anymore. But I was okay with that. For the first time in years, I had time to figure it out.